Chapter 6 The Inconceivable Liberation. Shariputra saw no seats in the room and thought, "Where do the bodhisattvas and chief disciples sit?" Vimalakirti knew of Shariputra's thought and asked him, "Virtuous one, do you come here for a seat or for the dharma?" Shariputra replied, "I come here for the dharma and not for a seat." Vimalakirti said, "Shariputra, he who searches for the dharma does not even cling to this body and life, still less so to a seat. For the quest of dharma is not related to the five aggregates of form, sensation, conception, discrimination, and consciousness, to the 18 fields of sense, dhatu, the 6 organs, their objects and their perceptions, to the 12 entrances, the 6 organs and 6 sense data that enter for or lead to discrimination, and to the worlds of desire, form and beyond form. Shariputra, a seeker of the Dharma does not cling to the Buddha, the Dharma and the Sangha. A seeker of the Dharma does not hold the view of suffering, of cutting off all the accumulated causes thereof, to put an end to it by treading the path of Nirvana. Why is it so? Because the Dharma is beyond all sophistry. For if one says, because I see suffering, I cut off its accumulated causes, to wipe it out by treading the path thereto, this is mere sophistry, and is not the quest for the Dharma. Shariputra, the Dharma is called Nirvana, the condition of complete serenity and ultimate extinction of reincarnation. If you give rise to the concept of birth and death, this is a search for birth and death, and is not the quest of Dharma. The Dharma is absolute and immaculate, but if you are defiled by the thought of Dharma, and even that of Nirvana, this is pollution which runs counter to the quest of Dharma. Dharma cannot be practiced, and if it is put into practice, this implies something, i.e. an object, to be practiced, and is not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is beyond grasping and rejecting, and if you grasp or reject it, this is grasping or rejecting something else, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is beyond position, but if you give it a place, this is clinging to a space, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is formless, but if you rely on form to conceive the Dharma, this is search for form, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is not an abode, but if you want to stay in it, this is dwelling in an objective Dharma, but not the quest of absolute Dharma. Dharma can be neither seen nor heard, nor felt, nor known, but if you want to see, hear, feel and know it, this is the functioning of your discriminatory seeing, hearing, feeling and knowing, but not the quest of Dharma. Dharma is transcendentally inactive, but if you are set on worldly activities, this is a search for the worldly way of life, but not the quest of Dharma. Therefore, Shariputra, the quest of Dharma does not imply seeking anything whatsoever. When Vimalakirti so spoke, 500 sons of Devas realized the pure Dharma eye. Vimalakirti then asked Manjushri, "The virtuous one has travelled in countless thousands and tens of thousands of worlds. Which one is the Buddha land where the highest merits make the lion throne of its Buddha?" Manjushri replied, "Venerable Upasaka, in the east there is a Buddha land, which is separated from here by a distance represented by worlds as countless as the sand grains in 36 Ganges rivers. It is called Merudvaja, whose Buddha is called Merukalpa, who is still there. His body is 84,000 yajna high, and his lion throne, also as high, is of prominent majesty." Thereat, Vimalakirti used his transcendental powers to invite Buddha Merukalpa to send to his room 32,000 high, large, majestic and clean lion thrones, which the bodhisattvas, chief disciples of the Buddha, Indra and Brahma, the 4 Deva kings, etc., had never seen before. The room contained all the 32,000 lion thrones, which did not hinder one another, and which did not obstruct anything at Vasali. on this earth and in the four heavens, where all things remained unchanged as before. Vimalakirti then said to Manjushri, "Please, take a lion throne and be seated amongst the great bodhisattvas by enlarging the size of your body to that of the seat. Those bodhisattvas who had acquired supernatural powers enlarged their bodies to the size of the thrones on which they sat, without difficulty. But the newly initiated bodhisattvas and chief disciples of the Buddha could not mount the high thrones." Vimalakirti then said to Shariputra, "Please be seated on a lion throne." Shariputra replied, "Venerable Upasaka, these thrones are large and high, we cannot mount them." Vimalakirti said, "Shariputra, you should first pay reverence to the Tathagata Merukalpa, and will then be able to sit on one of them." Thereat, all newly initiated bodhisattvas and chief disciples of the Buddha paid reverence to the Tathagata Merukalpa, and then sat on the lion thrones. Shariputra said to Vimalakirti, "Venerable Upasaka, this was not seen before. This small room can contain these high and large thrones, which do not obstruct anything at Vasali, and do not interfere with the cities, towns, and villages on this world, as well as with the palaces of the devas and heavenly dragons, and the abodes of the ghosts and spirits." Vimalakirti said, "Shariputra, the liberation realized by all Buddhas and the great bodhisattvas is inconceivable. If a bodhisattva wins this liberation, he can put the great extensive Mount Sumeru in a mustard seed, which neither increases nor decreases its size, while Sumeru remains the same, and the four Deva kings, and the Devas of the heavens of Indra, are not even aware of their being put into the seed, but only those who have won liberation see Sumeru in the mustard seed. This is the inconceivable dharma door to liberation. He can also put the four great oceans in a paw, without causing inconvenience to fishes, water tortoises, sea turtles, water lizards, and all other aquatic animals, while the oceans remain the same, and the dragons, ghosts, spirits, and titans are not even aware of being displaced and interposed. Furthermore, Shariputra, a great bodhisattva who has won this inconceivable liberation can take and put on his right palm the great chiliocosm, like a potter holding his wheel, throw it beyond a number of worlds as countless as the sand grains in the Ganges, and then take it back to its original place, while all living beings therein do not know of their being thrown away and returned, and while our world remains unchanged. Furthermore, Shariputra, if there are living beings who are qualified for liberation, but who want to stay longer in this world, this bodhisattva will use his supernatural power to extend a week to an aeon, so that they will consider their remaining time to be an aeon. And if, on the other hand, there are living beings who hate staying longer in the world before achieving liberation, this bodhisattva will shorten an aeon to a week, so that they will consider their remaining time to be only a week. Further, Shariputra, a bodhisattva who has won this inconceivable liberation can gather in one country all the majestic things of all Buddha lands, so that they are all visible in that particular country. Further, he can place on his right palm all the living beings of a Buddha land, and then fly in all the 10 directions to show them all things everywhere, without even shaking them. Furthermore, Shariputra, this bodhisattva can show through one of his paws all offerings to the Buddhas by living beings in the 10 directions. He can show through one of his paws all suns, moons, planets, and stars in all the worlds in the 10 directions. Furthermore, Shariputra, he can breathe in and hold in his mouth all the winds blowing in the worlds in the 10 directions, without injuring his own body or the trees of these worlds. Further, when the worlds in the 10 directions come to an end through destruction of fires, this bodhisattva can breathe in these fires into his own belly without being injured by them, while they continue to burn without change. Further, this bodhisattva can take from the Nadia a Buddha land separated from him by worlds as countless as the sand grains in the Ganges, and lift it up to the zenith, which is separated from him by worlds as countless as there are sand grains in the Ganges, with the same ease as he picks up a leaf of the date tree with the point of a needle. Furthermore, Shariputra, a bodhisattva who has won this inconceivable liberation can use his transcendental powers to appear as a Buddha, or a Pratyeka Buddha, or a Shravaka, a sovereign Shakra, Brahma, or a ruler of the world. He can also cause all sound and voices of high, medium, and low pitches in the worlds, in the 10 directions, to change into the Buddha's voice proclaiming the doctrine of impermanence, suffering, unreality, and absence of ego, as well as all dharmas expounded by all Buddhas in the 10 directions, making them heard everywhere. Shariputra, I have mentioned only some of the powers derived from this inconceivable liberation, but if I were to enumerate them all, a whole eon would be too short for the purpose. Mahakasyapa, who had heard of this dharma of inconceivable liberation, praised it, and said it had never been expounded before. He then said to Shariputra, like the blind who do not see images in various colours shown to them, all Shravakas hearing this dharma door to inconceivable liberation will not understand it. Of the wise men hearing about it, who will not set his mind on the quest of supreme enlightenment? What should we do to uproot forever the rotten Shravaka root, as compared with this Mahayana, so that all Shravakas hearing this doctrine of inconceivable liberation shed tears of repentance, and scream so loudly as to shake the great Chiliocosm? As to the Bodhisattvas, they are all happy to receive this dharma reverently by placing it on the tops of their heads. If a Bodhisattva believes and practices this dharma door to inconceivable liberation, all demons cannot oppose him. When Mahakasyapa spoke these words, 32,000 sons of the Devas set their minds on the quest of supreme enlightenment. Thereat, Vimalakirti declared to Mahakasyapa, Virtuous one, those who appear as kings of demons in countless worlds in the 10 directions are mostly bodhisattvas who have realized this inconceivable liberation and who use expedient means to appear as their rulers in order to convert living beings. Further, countless bodhisattvas in the 10 directions appear as beggars asking for hands, feet, ears, noses, heads, brains, blood, flesh, skin and bones, towns and hamlets, wives and slaves, elephants, horses and carts, gold, silver, coral, amber, pearl, jade, shell, clothing, food and drink. Most of these beggars are bodhisattvas who have realized this inconceivable liberation and use expedient devices to test believers in order to cement their faith in the Dharma. Because the bodhisattvas who have realized inconceivable liberation possess the awe-inspiring power to bring pressure to bear upon believers and ask for inalienable things to test them, but worldly men whose spirituality is low have no such transcendental powers and cannot do all this. These bodhisattvas are like dragons and elephants which can trample with tremendous force, which donkeys cannot do. This is called the wisdom and expedient methods of the bodhisattvas who have won the inconceivable liberation.